Welcome to the Addiction Solution Podcast. I'm Michelle Dunbar. Enjoy listening and watching as addiction experts Mark Sheeran and I cover controversial as well as helpful topics on addiction, how to move past it, and other related subjects. As two of the co-founders of the Freedom Model, Mark and I will give you a completely new perspective on the topics that matter to you. We will take to task the Recovery Society's lies and misinformation and replace them with facts, research, and the methods to move on from addiction struggles without 12-step meetings, rehabs, and the shackles of endless recovery. Let's escape the treatment and recovery trap together and learn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Sheeran.
And I'm Michelle Dunbar, and this is the Addiction Solution Podcast.
And we co-wrote the Freedom Model for Addictions, Escape the Treatment and Recovery Trap with our colleague, Stephen Slate. I just want to say that tagline of our book is an appropriate tagline for today's topic, which is RFK's proposal for what are called wellness farms for addiction.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast is going to become more important than it's ever been in the upcoming months because we basically have a 12-step zealot taking over the addiction treatment space in this country. And what Mark and I are going to talk about is the articles that I've read. Everybody's wrong.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we've been at this for 36 years. So we've seen a tremendous number of trends come through the addiction help space. And being that we were the creators of the non-12-step movement, we were the first people to create a telemedicine model with our coaching model. Way back in 1989, we started coaching in the addiction help space, long before it was a thing. So we've done some things that nobody else has done. And we also simultaneously were a part of the 12-step world in both Michelle's case and my case. We grew up in the cult of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Sure did.
And then we walked out of it by dismantling it through research and a tremendous amount of research and development in our program model, which was at the time the Freedom Model, which developed into the Freedom Model. And today, and then we wrote the book after 27 years of doing all this research. Here's my point. In that timeline of events, we've watched as therapeutic communities, which is really what this proposal is. We're going all the way backwards to a 12-step therapeutic community long-term treatment model where we're housing people in camps, basically labor camps.
Labor camps. You're not just housing people, you're capturing them. You're incarcerating them.
Yeah. And so these become the alternatives to incarceration model. Now, TCs never went completely away. They still exist. But they sort of fell out of favor because there was a high death rate. And the first models of TCs with Synanon, and just look up Synanon if you want to understand the roots of where all this started, which was insanity. Now, I know what they're going to say. And first of all, I like RFK. I think he's a really smart guy. I think he's got a really good heart. And I think his intentions are good.
I agree.
And I think he's actually open-minded to data. So we're sending him copies of the Freedom Model. So if you're all out there, encourage Human Health Services to get those books to him, because we literally are sending them out today with an explanation of a better model. Ironically, we're going back into a model that is really the tyranny of experts, and it's not going to be helpful. Here's why. So I think, let me back up. I think that RFK has a good heart. I think he's got an open mind, and I hope he reads our book, because if he is truly open-minded, our book will challenge everything he thinks, because he's a 12-step zealot. He had a 14-year heroin problem, heroin and cocaine. And so he, quote unquote, got well through the 12 steps. So he's a zealot. He's a believer. But what he doesn't realize is that it wasn't the 12 steps. And actually, I watched a podcast, and it was really interesting how he doesn't realize that he made a choice internally, and he's giving credit to something outside of himself as getting him well.
Which many people do.
It's incredibly common, because the discussion about how to get past these problems is predicated on a false disease ideal. So you believe that there's this thing outside of you, this nebulous force called addiction, the disease of addiction, which he talks about plainly. And if you're a believer in that, you believe that you are out of control. And these are fundamental myths. And so what happens is people miss the point of truth, that they made a decision, and that decision is what guided them out of the problem. It can't be any other way. You can't do something against yourself, because there's only one of you inside you, and that's your mind, your choice, your free will. So we're going backwards.
Well,
in a big way.
And here's what's really interesting. So when people change, when people are forced into treatment in the 12-step model, like you were, quite frankly, right? Because they've broken a law, they get caught with something, which RFK, that happened to him. And so they're forced into this treatment model. And then when they subsequently change, which is a very small percentage of those people that get forced into the 12-step program, that get forced into treatment programs, then 12-step, relatively speaking, it's a tiny percentage of people that are successful, okay, in that course. But because he was successful, he has a very skewed perception of how he changed. And if he would just open his mind to look at all the people that didn't go the route he did, that maybe they did get arrested, right? Maybe they got arrested, and they said they rejected the treatment model. They rejected the 12-step model. Maybe they went to jail. Maybe they had good lawyers that got them off, and they were on probation, and they just made a decision. You know what? I don't want to live that way anymore. And so I'm not going to. And they simply changed their mind. That's a greater percentage.
A much greater percentage.
Right. So
that's
we would
ignored.
Call those, right. We would call those the control group.
That's exactly right. So you have this massive body of research, ironically, that was conducted by the government, that's ignored. It's called MISARC. And I encourage RFK to watch this, to watch what we're talking about. Read the book. I'm sending it to you.
And we're going to send another sheet that has some really interesting data.
That's right. So there'll be a folder in there with all the data sets. And there's the person who's shooting heroin, like you did, like, other people have. And they sit on their couch one night, and they're 40 years old, 30 years old, 23 years old, 15, who knows? And they simply say, I'm done.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Incredibly common.
Yep.
No buprenorphine, Suboxone, no treatment, no probation departments, no coercion, no AA, no strange protocols, no recovery model, nothing. It's the most common way that people get past a drug problem or an alcohol problem or a fetish problem, is on their own in the confines of their mind. And unfortunately, if you're a believer, as you're going through your struggle, and then you frame it as I'm out of control, and then you frame it as a disease, and none of these things are real, you can't just sit on the couch and do that. You end up sitting on the couch, making that decision, and then you say, oh my God, I have to go to rehab.
Yes. Or I can't fix this. I can't kick this.
So,
or maybe you even frame it as I'm doomed for the rest of my life.
That's right. And what if you're a person like me who literally made the decision as I was sitting in the back of the cop car. And then 6 months later, the courts catch up and say, you got to go to rehab. I said, I haven't drank or drugged in 6 months and my life has taken off and I'm doing well.
This would set me backwards.
Yeah, I've moved on and it didn't matter. So I would have been a candidate. I ended up in treatment for 18 months. I would have been a candidate for one of these wellness farms and wasted maybe a year or two of my life learning that I'm broken, which is exactly what happened, which was devastating to my state of mind. I didn't have a disease, you know. I drank every day to the point where I would shake in the morning and have stomach cramps and sweats and all the miserable withdrawal symptoms. But I wasn't an alcoholic. I was a person that preferred to drink for personal reasons. And I knew that. I didn't need treatment. I probably needed detox, physical treatment.
Yeah.
But I didn't need rehab. And nobody needs rehab. Nobody. And I know that's hard for people to understand, but if you read this, you'll understand it. So let's not go backwards.
This whole idea is based on that there is some kind of nebulous force that takes over a person, and therefore they need external things, people, protocols to fix them, or not even fix them. It's also based on the idea that they can never actually be fixed, that this is something they'll struggle with forever. And I'd be curious to know if RFK will say, I have to make a choice not to use heroin every single day, because I don't believe that for a goddamn minute.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe he's been duped into that. I don't know.
Which would be a shame. And do we and honestly, if that is the case, that he's this ticking time bomb, which is what the addiction disease mythology believes, do we really want him running the show here? I'm
Right.
going to take that to where
I agree.
it goes. So you either have control and you're not powerless, or you don't. That's kind of an all or nothing thing.
I watched a podcast and it was so interesting watching him talk about his experience. And he's such a likable dude.
He is. I agree.
And I love his stance on so many things. And I think he's really, really smart. And what's happened is he's been duped by a Western cultural view of addiction that goes back 100 years and was false. And he was born into that, like we all have been.
Yeah.
But in the conversation, he talks about his brother who got involved in the Mooney cult but had moved on from his drug problem, and that was an inspiration for him to seek out a spiritual experience. But while he was explaining this, prior to that, he was saying how he just wanted to move on and be normal. And I thought, that's where it happened for him.
Yeah.
Once you make that decision and you're not fettered with all the disease mythology, that's how people move on. That's how he moved on. But he doesn't realize it. He thought he needed a spiritual experience. So he had already made the decision, and then because it was set in his mind that he needed this spiritual thing, he went and sought that out after the fact. So decision-making is the only method by which people change behaviors.
Yeah.
Now, you can be captured and put in jail. That'll change your behavior. You can capture a body. You can manipulate people's means, their physical means, their housing, their money through taxation, whatever. You can manipulate people that way, but you can't manipulate minds without their consent.
That's it.
And so somewhere in RFK's experience, as he was explaining it, and he explained it very articulately, he's really smart, and a pleasure to listen to. When he was talking, you could see that all the cultural mythology was in place before he had this experience. of drug taking and interpreting drugs as magical.
Well, yeah, he came of age, right? I mean, he's 15 years older than us, just about. He's like 70 years old. He came of age at a time when drugs were the panacea.
Yeah.
The 1960s when getting high was seen as enlightened, right?
Yeah, and it was really interesting because he started taking drugs. I don't think it was peyote. It might have been mescaline. I can't remember what it was. Acid, whatever. And he was dead set against drinking. He was dead set against drugs, and they come from a very Catholic family, and he had taken the pledge, and he talks about all this. But he saw a comic book where his favorite comic book had this Indian who took peyote and had this spiritual experience. So then it started this whole path down the drug world. And so he believed in magic. He believed in the magic of drugs. And when you start with hallucinogens, it's very easy to get looped into that culture because of the way it acts on the brain tissue. And so he got caught in that, and then he gets caught in the disease ideals. And all of this sort of leads him down a path that eventually now we're seeing wellness farms. Now I want to talk a little bit about the dangers of this model, and we're going to see it blossom. If this takes off, we're going to see it blossom. And I'm going to give the warning now, and I'm very good at predicting these things because I've been studying it for over 35 years. And I lived it as a child. I was stuck in a treatment center for 18 months on and off. It was an intensive outpatient that I had to go every day for 18 months. And I spent 8 hours a day in this mental hospital. It was terrible. And my brother was in a therapeutic community. Terrible experience.
Your family worked in them.
Yeah. My mother ran them. And both my sister and my mother left the industry because of the horrible corruption, the mass suicides that happened. I say not mass suicides. I shouldn't say that term. The amount of suicides per capita and overdoses within the facilities, and how all of it was basically pushed under the rug and hidden.
And abuse
and financial fraud. Yeah. Abuse, sexual abuse, rapes. I mean, the amount of horror that happens when you bring people who are incredibly lost, they're told they're diseased for the rest of their lives, which breeds hopelessness, which none of this is true.
They're told they're powerless.
Yeah. They're out of control and powerless.
Out of control and powerless. And then a lot of the people that are supposed to be helping them, right, are people in recovery themselves who believe that they have to keep working in the industry, helping people so that they can stay sober and drug free. But they themselves are also powerless. And so they can't trust their own thinking, yet they're responsible for helping these people and guiding. Like all of it is so convoluted and dangerous.
Yeah.
It's really, really frightening.
So here's what you're talking about. And this is an article about this, that the farms are based on a framework known as the therapeutic community model, which we have been trying desperately as a culture to get away from the massive amount of abuse that happens.
Yeah.
Which relies heavily, this is what Michelle was just talking about, on peer-to-peer support and behavioral solutions for addiction, as compared to medication-based treatment strategies like methadone or Suboxone therapy. So,
and then I want to go into that.
Yeah. So the whole medication thing is predicated on the fact that the best you're going to do is have somebody take one drug.
Right. Is get your drugs from the government or a doctor as opposed to getting them on the street, which obviously takes away the risk factor, but that's the only difference.
That's right. It's all a game. It's all a shell game with money and shifting the profit from the cartels to big pharma.
So we're going to watch, though. Here's what's going to happen. So before these therapeutic communities are enacted, which I think they're going to be, by the way. I think these farms are probably going to happen.
I hope not. I hope he reads the book and says, my God, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah, I hope he does too. Because these two options, so what's going to happen is we're going to see the fight between big pharma and the medication assisted treatment options with these spiritual religious options, which are opposite sides of the exact same coin.
That's right.
That's wrong.
That's
okay.
Right. That's
and
right.
that is that you are powerless. You're out of control. You're diseased. You have an affliction that needs something outside of you to fix you.
And the affliction, the disease, we call it a concept because it's never been proven to exist.
Ever.
Is a straw man. It's not real. And I can say that to the camera. The data is here. We refute the brain disease theory in Appendix A and B.
Easily.
Read it easily. There's so much data that refutes this nonsense. And the biggest is the fact that everybody, essentially, given enough time, gets over the problem, whether they're treated or not. Nearly everybody.
So I want to do an analogy here, okay? Because we use the red car thing a lot. You know how we say, if you start looking for red cars, you're going to see them everywhere. And that is true. Okay. Here's the difference. It's not that you're looking, it may not even be that you're looking for evidence that the addiction disease model is true. It's that you're being fed the evidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
You're being fed the evidence all day, every single day. And so it's easy to see that, oh, I know, Brenda overdosed and she went to like 4 treatment programs and, oh, it's got to be a disease. And I know this and that, but you're not being fed the literal millions of people that literally age out of the problem. Like if you look at the data sets of where drug use, and I'm not talking about occasional little drug use, I'm talking about heavy drug use peaks between the ages of 18 and 24. Okay. Go figure. That's the time when everything's brand new and you're having a lot of fun and you go away to college and you're partying your ass off, right?
Yeah, you're living in fantasy. You can do that when you're a kid.
do that. And it's more than 50% of drug users in that age group qualify as having substance use disorder.
Right.
Alcohol use disorder, substance use disorder. They are full-blown heavy substance users. And then you get beyond the age of 24 and that drops off. I mean, it drops off a cliff by age 30. People age out of it, no matter how heavy their use, with the exception of those that get yanked out of their party phase and thrown into treatment.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to see the rates rise.
Yes.
We're going to see a massive amount of funding go into corrupt programs. We're going to see.
Well, we've already seen that.
Yeah. Look, I can't believe that he's not done his homework on this.
Well, because he's in the religion. He's within it.
I know. And the religion is the recovery religion. We call it the Recovery Society in our book. So we're going to see big pharma get heavily involved. You're going to see a mixing of big pharma get involved with the medication assisted therapies.
Which, look at, I want to qualify that we're not saying that hasn't helped some people.
Right. No, it can save lives if it's a stopgap measure.
Exactly.
For overdose.
Yep.
I think that's fine. But when we start to talk about lifelong Suboxone use for somebody that was doing crystal meth, there's not even.
Oh my God. There's not even anything good about it.
I mean, that doesn't even remotely make sense.
Makes no sense.
None.
That just is to sell drugs. That's all that is. That's marketing.
Yeah. So, and then we're going to watch this industry, which is now about a $45 billion industry in America. We're going to watch this industry blow up
again.
Yep. Into just a juggernaut of money and greed. And I'm sorry to say this, but because we've already done this.
Yeah, we have.
It's so insane to me that we're going back to the abuse model and capturing our young people and teaching them that they're broken for life when they don't have the disease to begin with. There is no disease. So,
and the data's already there, right? Because we've already run this experiment. We've already run the experiment of prohibition, right? That's a abysmal failure. We've already run the experiment of throwing everybody into treatment programs. I mean, the data is stark in that as we have more people have gone to treatment, the overdose rate has exploded. The rate, the longevity of the problem gets much longer. The rates of dangerous binge usage go up exponentially. I mean, all the data, when you look at the outcome data, it's horrific.
Here's what I would like to propose to RFK or anybody that's listening that has influence in HHS. Let's do a study, a 5-year longitudinal study, and pit their model against the freedom model. Not only that, but we'll do the freedom model in 3 sessions, our 3-session model, which has a workshop, 3 90-minute sessions, coupled with 3 months of our online program tutorials, pre-recorded tutorials. We'll pit that. We'll have that with 100 people.
Yep.
A random sample of 100 people. And these people will stay at home. We'll do it over Zoom. And then we'll pit it against a full year of their wellness farm model, their best one. And then we'll track for 5 years post. And we'll track with corroboration from family members and contact people. So it's not self-report, just self-report. And we'll see which has the better model. One will be literally pennies in comparison to the amount of money and tax money being
that's
spent.
The other part.
And we'll fund both, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
that's my proposal. I have no problem going head to head with any facility in the country or the world for that matter. And we'd be happy to do this. We'd be happy to do it. The funding stream is the same, comes out of the taxpayer. That's fine. I don't care. I don't care how people pay for the treatment. Doesn't matter. What matters is we have protocols, and it's followed post for 5 years. And we have criteria that we both agree upon, and we'll do the study and we'll see what works. And you may find that our model is going to be 5 to 10 times better because we've already done this. We've already done this.
Even with people, and here's the difference though, because what he's proposing is to literally snatch people off the street. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me is that hardcore intervention model where you're going to be deemed to be unfit because you're going through a party phase or whatever. And
yeah, we're not gonna do a study based on forced coercion.
No, because that is fraught. I mean, to me, that is.
Yeah, we're not going to participate.
It's abusive.
Yeah, we're not going to participate in the loss of rights
and body snatching
of human right.
Yeah,
I lived through that where you have no rights, and it's unbelievably painful, and it led to my near suicide. So we're not going to do that to people. This has to be people who want to be in the study, who have a desire to change their lives. And we would have that criteria laid out. But we're not going to do the hardcore intervention.
Yeah. And furthermore, we're happy with taking people who have been to 1, 2, 3, 4 treatment programs who are deemed like the chronic relapser, as long as they are like, no, I really do want to change. And they're stuck in that system because that requires an undoing of deep mythology.
Yeah.
And that is what we do.
Yeah, we're experts at that. And so I'm gonna end with this. I thought the most profound part of that podcast that I watched with him was when he said, I didn't want to be broken. I wanted to be normal, and I wanted to be free. And the irony is you're about to trap a bunch of people into an ethos because you got trapped. You're about to trap people into an ethos of them being broken when they're not. And that's criminal. It's wrong. It's wrong to do to people. It was done to me. It's done to my siblings, and it's wrong. And I see thousands of people. The suicide rates in that scenario are extremely high. The rape, the murder rates are higher. I mean, do the studies, look at the therapeutic community model from its inception and why it's not the popular model anymore. This is important. So there, I put out the challenge. I hope that he reads the book. They'll be going out today, this afternoon, with some data. And I hope everybody that's watching this podcast forwards it to everybody in government that you can find, and let's get the study done.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's see if we can have an open mind finally, and really look at what addiction is, what it isn't, the fact that many people struggle and get over it on their own,
and how they do that.
Let's study all those people who do that, because they have the solution.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Right? So if you are somebody that's struggling, I have to just let you know that the Freedom Model, Mark and I, can help you solve your problem for good. If you've thought like Mark did, and like I did, and like RFK did, I just want to be normal, I just want to get over this. You can. Yeah. You are normal. Your struggles are normal. And everybody has addictions, quote unquote. It's the normal way that people function, is they develop habits. They develop things they like that they believe serve them well. And you may have just outgrown whatever it is that you thought once served you well. You may be still digging deep, trying to get from it what you used to, but you're not anymore. That's what feels like addiction. Okay. That's what we can help you to do, is solve it. So we have workshops, online workshops. And we also have very affordable coaching packages. And like Mark said, we have many people that do really well with our Solution to Addiction coaching package, which is you get 3 months. It's a 3-month system. Basically, you get 3 months of our online program, which are video tutorials that take you through this book. And you get the Solution to Addiction workshop, which is 2 to 3 hour video workshop. It has a book that goes with it.
And a workbook.
And you get 3 coaching sessions, 90-minute coaching sessions with one of us.
And we also have another option where people fly in for 2 days and are taught with Michelle and I personally.
And that's a 12-month system.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's all voluntary. When we say 12 months, we're not saying that you're in a therapeutic community.
No.
Okay. This is where you get to choose how much that you have access to all the data for a year.
Yeah, to the online program, your membership. You have access to us for that full year, right? Where you'll get the 2 full days with us, and then you'll get 3 additional coaching sessions in the weeks that follow, and more if you want them. But you'll also get once a month a 2-hour Q&A with us if you want that. Nearly everyone who does that system is done within 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've solved their problem. Okay.
So, but it's on your schedule.
Yeah.
It's on your schedule. This isn't you stuck in some facility that you're at home and you're living your life. And then you have these sessions with us. And then you have this online program, which is all pre-recorded at your fingertips.
And you know why people like that option, and the option to be able to contact us, is because you're living in a culture where you're being bombarded with misinformation every single day. So as you're kind of coming out of that fog and you're solving your problem, what happens is you get bombarded with this misinformation. And sometimes you're like, wait a minute. I think I need to talk with them. I think I need to watch a video so that I can remember that no, I'm not powerless. There's nothing wrong with me. This thing I'm struggling with is simply because it's life. It's not because I once liked getting high and drunk. You just need reminders. And look if we get our way and we can get in with RFK and maybe shift the thinking, perhaps all this will change.
Yeah. Millions of lives will be saved worldwide. We want this to be a global phenomenon. You know, we help people, ironically, we help a lot of people in Australia, the UK, Germany, these different countries where the disease concept has only flowered in the last 20 years. It doesn't have its roots in the society like it does in America. So they're more open-minded, especially the UK. They love the freedom model. I mean, we sold a boatload of books throughout the world. So this is going to change the treatment industry. I just hope we don't have to go backwards to go forward again.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, everybody. Have a great day.
Yes.